side, will thou teach me how to serve thee? Will thou teach me how to pray? Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Hello, in this video, we're going to do the Lord's Prayer. The old traditional Doxology Baptist version that I learned while playing at the Big Baptist Church for 12 years. It just gets repetitive, but just little nuances in there. Just got to pay attention to, because you're just really playing the words with this song anyway. So it's in C. All right. So C is the 1, D is the 2, E is the 3, F is the 4, G is the 5, A is the 6, B is the 7. Back to the 1. All right. So for the intro, it goes. All right, so G and E, F and D, E and C. So now we put a bass to it. So we switch it up. So G in the bass, G B, F in the bass, F A, E in the bass, E G, D in the bass, D and F, C, C and E, all right, so we go to the D in the bass, F sharp, A, C, E, G and D in the bass, G, A, B, and D. All right, so. Okay, so that's one way you could do it. You could resolve it there. Once you get to the G, you can do that too. All right. So G and F, D and G, G and E, C sharp and G, G and E flat, C and G, G and D, B and G. All right, so it's 2 ways you can do it. All right, or okay. Okay. And then they go into singing. Let the words of my mouth, let the words of my mouth. Okay. So we're staying on the 1. And then we go to the 5, back to the 1 in the bass. Okay, so C, G, and C. So let the words. So C, E, D, F, and E, G before you. So by the time you get to the E and G, you hit the C in the bass. Let the words of. So we go from the E, G to the E flat, F sharp. Words of my mouth. All right, and so we hit the C, E, G, E flat, F sharp, E, G, F, A, and then hit it again, the C, and then E, G, and then we're gonna go down. We're gonna walk down. All right, so C, B, A, G, and then so E, C, F, D, G, E, F sharp, E flat, G, E, A, F, G. All right, so let me go over that again. All right, and then we start walking down the chords. All right, so G, E, F, D, E, C before we hit the bass. All right, so G in the bass, G, B, F, F, A, E, E, G, D, D, F, C, C, E. All right, so D in the bass, F sharp, A, C, E, G, D, G, A, B, D. So back to that intro part, the very first thing we did in the intro. All right, so from there, be acceptable. All right, so G in the bass, G, B, A in the bass, G, C, B in the bass, G, D. All right, C in the bass, G, C, E. We're gonna go from the C, B, B flat. All right. All right. Then we're gonna stay on the C. We're gonna go to C, E, G. Go to E in the bass, C, G, B flat. F in the bass, C, F, A. All right, then. So we got that. All right, so E in the bass, D flat, G, A. D in the bass, F, A, D. C in the bass, F, A, C. All right, B in the bass, D, F, D, F, B. All right, A in the bass, C, E, A. All right, so G in the bass, C, D, G. C goes to A and then to B. Everything else stays the same. All right. So let me go through that again. Right. So it's will thou that's another way you can do it. You can do it, or you can do either or. All right, so on the B, you can do D, F sharp, B. All right, then A, D, F sharp, A. I already showed you that. All right, so let me go through that again. Or without teach. Okay, so B flat and F, A flat, C, D, F, without. Right, chord stays the same up top. A flat, E flat, A flat, C, D, F, teach. All right, G and D, G, C, E. All right, so G, D, G, C, F, to pray. All right, G, C, G, G, C, E. Or you can do the walk down too. You can do that too. All right, so that's C and B flat, G and C, C and A, F sharp and C, C and A flat, F and C, C and G, E and C. So now we're going to Our Father. All right, so we're on the 1. C, E, G, C, E, G. Which art in heaven. All right, so F in the bass, C, F, A, B, I. So G in the bass, G, D, G, B, and the G goes to F sharp, to the F, and then on the 1. All right, so C in the bass, F, G, C, D, G, C. All right, we're still on the C on the 1, E, G, B flat. All right, so F, C, F, A, thy will be done on earth. E in the bass, C, E, G, and then as it is. Okay, so B flat, A flat, C, D, F, A flat, C, D, F, G in the bass, G, C, E, F sharp, A, C, and then, all right, G, B, D, B, B, D, F, heaven. All right, so back to the C, C, G, C, G, C, E. All right, so give us this day. So we stay on the C, C, G, our day. Same chords, C, F, A, remember we showed you that, G, D, G, D, G, B, F sharp to F. And forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those. All right, so we're just repeating the chords at this point. We trespass against us. Right? Same chords. And lead us not into temptation. Now this is a little bit different here. But deliver us. All right, so that part is a little different, but everything else after that is the same. C in the bass, C, E, G, D in the bass, B, D, G, E in the bass, C, E, G. Stay, then go to the C in the bass, C, E, G, then F. All right, so C, F, A. Same thing we already did. All right, so for thine is the kingdom, F in the bass, C, F, A, and the power, C, F, A, and the glory. So it's F chord. So you can do some drop twos here. So that's A, F, C, F, C, A, E, C, G, and then